Today we'll be checking out 10 accidental inventions you can't live without.
Snow globes. So back in the day,
Really?
there was this guy
That's
trying to
not
make
a
a brighter
bud?
light bulb. He thought adding water and tiny particles to the bulb would help brighten things up.
Interesting.
Well, turns out it didn't. But what it did do was create a cool snowfall effect when shaken.
Oh.
Fast forward a bit, and these accidental art pieces got their big break at the Paris Universal Expo of 1878.
They're
People
that
went nuts for
old?
them. A smart cookie from Austria thought it would be cool to put a model of the newly built Eiffel Tower in them, and bam, the souvenir snow globe was born. Suddenly, everyone wanted one. People really liked the idea of taking home a piece of their travels without the hassle of dragging the actual Eiffel Tower with them.
I feel like it's so cool how there's probably dozens of, maybe even like thousands of inventions that were just created by accident. It was somebody trying to like solve a problem, and then they just created something entirely different that people actually like. I know that happens all of the time, but I never heard about it with snow globes, which is actually kind of cool. I have my very own snow globe right here. So it's neat to think that this actually started out as a light bulb, which makes sense because the outside kind of does look like a giant light bulb, but then on the inside you have water, little particles, and then you put like models of stuff inside that you like. So that is
Number
pretty
9,
neat.
the popsicle. This one was invented by an 11-year-old kid named Frank Epperson back in...
Wait a second, you're telling me an 11-year-old like literally was just beep-bopping around, maybe got home from school one day, and they were just like, what would happen if I made sugar-flavored water and then I decided to put a popsicle stick inside and put it in the freezer?
1905. After a day of playing around, he left a drink he had made from flavored soda powder and water outside overnight.
Soda
The next
powder.
morning, Frank finds his drink has turned into a block of ice, and the steering stick is still inside it.
He just left
sees
it outside.
this and pulls the frozen treat out by the stick. Frank named his invention the Epsicle, and it quickly became his favorite treat.
Wait a second, guys. So I kind of wonder because it seems like obviously there's snow. Snow is not really an invention. So did people make snow cones, or were snow cones kind of just like an invention that, kind of just like happened because there was snow one day and maybe somebody accidentally spilled like a drink onto the snow and then they like tried to scoop it up? Is that how snow cones were invented? Because I might be onto something.
Was also a hit with all the kids in the neighborhood.
Also, why are all
Years
these kids
later,
British?
His kids start
What
calling
is wrong
it
with their teeth?
Popsicle. So he changes the name to Popsicle, and thank goodness he did, because Epsicle sounds like a medical condition.
A
Number
little
8,
bit.
Potato chips.
Oh, yeah.
There was this chef named George Crumb. In 1853, he was working at a fancy restaurant in New York. One day, a picky customer sent back his French fries. He was complaining that they were too thick and soggy and not salty enough. George wasn't in a good mood that day and decided to teach this customer a lesson. Crumb sliced the potatoes super thin, fried them until they were super crispy, and then dumped a bunch of salt on them. The customer loved them. Everyone kept coming to his restaurant to try this new salty, crispy potato chips. Number 7, tea bags. All right, so we're in the early 1900s New York. Thomas Sullivan was a tea merchant. Sending tea samples to customers was a common thing back then.
Wait, I'm confused. Okay, so this is not the invention of tea. This is just tea bags, which are different. Even though nowadays most people make their tea using tea bags because they're easy to transport, easy to store. You open up the little packet, you dunk it in, and then you put your pinky up because it's fancy and stuff, and then you eat a crumpet or something. So I'm told.
But while other merchants were using expensive metal boxes to send their tea samples, Sullivan had a different plan. He thought, why spend so much on metal boxes when I can use something cheaper? He decided to go for silk bags instead.
Wait a second, so you're telling me that the first ever tea bag was actually made for transportation, and it was like probably a giant bag of tea, and then I'm starting to realize that maybe somebody accidentally dumped it in the water. Boston Tea Party, boys!
His customers were a bit puzzled at first. They had never seen tea sent like this. Instead of opening the bags and making the tea the traditional way, they thought they should pop the silk bag into a cup and pour hot water on it. And just like that, they discovered a super easy way to make tea. Turns out, people loved this new tea-making method.
Of course
they did. It was so much
did.
simpler and less messy. They started reaching out to Sullivan, asking handy tea pouches. Seeing how popular this accident had become, Sullivan got a brilliant idea. He started selling tea in these bags officially.
Of course.
Boom, his business took off like
He
a
was
rocket.
probably
Number
a millionaire.
6, matchsticks. So, the year is 1826. And we've got this British chemist named John Walker.
Hello,
He's
Baldy
just doing his chemist thing,
McBaldskins.
mixing up chemicals, probably dreaming about the periodic table or whatever chemists daydream about. Then he notices this crusty, dried-up lump at the end of his mixing stick.
What?
So, like any sensible person faced with a mess,
Sets it on
he
fire?
decides to scrape it off, but the thing bursts into flames. Walker thinks this could be a business idea, so he starts making and selling matchsticks at his local bookstore.
Genius.
Walker, being the gentleman that he is, decides not to patent his invention.
What?
He believed that sharing his invention with the world was way more important than filling his pockets with cash. So naturally, other inventors copied his invention and started selling matchsticks.
Of course
Despite
they
missing
did.
out on becoming the Bill Gates of his time, Walker didn't do too bad for himself. He stuck to his day job as a pharmacist and eventually retired comfortably.
Oh,
Number 5.
good for him.
Ice cream cones. Let's zoom
Fireman.
back to 1904. We're in the middle of the St. Louis World's Fair. This place was where all the coolest inventions of the time were on display for everyone to
Sweet.
look at.
I love
Ernest
inventions.
Hamwi is an immigrant from Syria, and he's here selling zalabia, which is this super tasty, crispy, waffle-like pastry.
Ooh,
Right
yummy.
next to Ernest is an ice cream seller who has a problem. He's run clean out of dishes to serve his ice cream in. But Hamwi doesn't just stand there. He takes one of his crispy zalabias, rolls it into a cone, and hands it over to the desperate ice
What?
cream dude. The ice cream seller then scoops some ice cream right into this newly formed cone.
That
The
is
customers
genius.
lose their minds over this revolutionary way to gobble down ice cream. It's portable, it's convenient, and it's delicious.
And nowadays, you can dunk it in chocolate and then put a bunch of toppings in it, and then you have a whole new dessert invention.
Number 4, cornflakes. It all started with the Kellogg
Cornflakes,
brothers,
really?
John and Will.
Wait a second, the Kellogg brothers, that's Kellogg cereal. So these are the actual guys that created it and then went on to probably become like bajillionaires because they turned their invention into all of these different cereal products.
These two were running a hospital. Their job included making sure their patients ate healthy food, which often meant baking bread. But one day, something unexpected happened. The Kellogg brothers had prepared a batch of wheat dough for their daily bread-making task,
The
but
daily
they
bread.
accidentally left this
Thank
dough
you,
out
God.
overnight. By the time they got back to it, the dough had started fermenting. John tried to fix things by rolling out the dough. He was hoping to get rid of the extra water, but instead he got wheat flakes. His brother saw a golden opportunity in these flakes. He decided to sell them, but with corn instead of wheat. John wasn't too happy
Oh.
about this, because he believed it was wrong to profit off what was meant to be a health food.
Guys, I feel like we skipped some steps. How does turning wheat into wheat chips, why did that make them think, oh, let's do this with corn? Is corn, like, better to create chips from? I don't really understand. I get that they had bread and that they made it and that they were trying to make bread and then they left it out overnight and then that dried out, turned into wheat chips, blah, 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 blah. But how did they figure out, like, oh, okay, this will work better with corn?
But Will went ahead anyway. He started the Kellogg Company. He also added sugar to the cornflakes to make it more tasty and started marketing it to kids. Number 3, Vaseline.
Wait, okay, they just kind of like glazed over that. So what you're saying is that one of the brothers, the Kellogg brothers, decided like, oh, I don't want to profit off of this. I just want to help people in a hospital. And the other one was like, I'm going to become Jeff Bezos. And he just decided he was going to sell the cereal, especially towards children. And then nowadays, I'm pretty sure Kellogg's like owns the entire cereal market. I'm pretty sure that they sell like all types of cereal now.
Back in the 1800s, there was a chemist named Robert Chesbrough. He was visiting some oil
Chesbrough.
rigs when he noticed something cool. The workers at the oil rig were using this weird, jelly-like gunk that built up on the machines to help heal their cuts and burns. This gooey
Why?
stuff was actually a leftover from drilling for oil, something most people saw as waste. You've got to hand it to the first guy who thought rubbing oil residue on an open wound was a good idea.
Okay, that guy definitely did not take his medicine that day. That he was not thinking straight.
It turns out, they were onto something.
How?
Chesbrough decided to work on refining this goop, and he created what we now know as Vaseline. But convincing people to buy it wasn't easy at first. Imagine trying to sell something that came from oil rigs for skincare. Tough
That
sell,
sounds so
right?
disgusting.
Chesbrough would actually burn himself on purpose, and then apply Vaseline to show how it helped heal his skin. He
What?
was so convinced of Vaseline's benefits that he ate a spoonful of it every day.
What?
He claimed it was his secret to a long life. He lived to be 96 years old.
Okay, but
Imagine how long he would have
I'm buying
lived if he
Vaseline
didn't eat
right
a
now.
spoonful of Vaseline every single day.
Oh yeah, true.
Number 2,
Actually, good point.
microwave oven. Percy Spencer was an engineer working on radar technology. One day, Percy's messing around with these things called magnetrons. which sounds like a villain from a sci-fi movie, but they're actually just fancy tubes that send out microwaves. Percy's standing there, probably thinking about what he's going to have for lunch. Then he reaches into his pocket and finds a disaster. His peanut butter candy bar had melted. That got him thinking. If microwaves can do that to his snack. He grabs some popcorn, throws it in front of the magnetron, and makes the world's first microwave popcorn.
Nice.
Percy decides to turn this discovery into a kitchen appliance. He whips up the Rada Range, a machine that costs a small fortune.
How much?
And weighs as much as a small car.
That is
Not
huge.
exactly your countertop model. The Rada Range was a flop at first.
Take
People
my
were
money.
scared of it, thinking it was some sort of radioactive monster.
It
Also,
probably
it was
was.
$5,000. That's like choosing between a microwave and a decent used car.
$5,000 today? No, that's a lot more money, I'm pretty sure. I would guess that was probably the equivalent of today's money if that was like $20,000.
But by the 1970s, it's shrunk down to fit on your counter, doesn't require you to sell a kidney to afford it, and suddenly, everyone wants one. Number 1, chocolate chip cookies. It's 1938,
That was a mistake?
and Ruth Wakefield decides to bake a batch of chocolate cookies, but she's out of cocoa powder. Instead of running to the store, she decides to grab a bar of Nestlé chocolate, chops it up into little chunks, and tosses them into her dough, thinking they'd melt and blend into the batter. But the chocolate gods had other plans. Those chunks stayed solid, making what we now bow down to as the chocolate chip cookie. She started selling these cookies, and needless to say, they were a big hit. So Nestle started selling pre-chopped...
Guys, okay, this lady, I owe her a bajillion thank yous. She made my favorite food of all time. I love it so much, I made a plushie after chocolate chip cookies, which you could find in the description of today's video.
chocolate, and they slapped her cookie recipe on their packaging.
The best
In
invention of all
exchange,
time.
She got a lifetime supply of chocolate.